Hey, welcome to Graphic Policy Television, GPTV. Brett, in my hands is The Jewish Brigade from Dead Reckoning, and done by Marvano. So Dead Reckoning is a publisher that focuses on historical graphic novels. They are an offshoot of Naval Institute Press, the publisher of books like The Hunt for Red October. Some of their graphic novels are like very historically accurate, biographies, stuff like that, and some of them are kind of, loose, based off of history with a lot of research. So some of the like Garth Ennis war comics. So the Jewish Brigade, I think, kind of falls in that latter end of things. It's based on truth, but I don't believe a lot of these characters actually existed. If they did, I am happy to be corrected. But it's a story about this guy named Leslie Toliver who winds up signing up for the Jewish Brigade. The Jewish Brigade was put together by the British towards the end of the war, and it was a Jewish fighting force during World War II. They went in, they whipped a lot of ass, and then they were moved away. What's interesting is the graphic novel is kind of broken up into is broken up into three sections. Not kind of, it is broken up into three sections. The first bit of it is Toliver going all Inglorious Bastards in Munich on folks, running around Europe and just knifing and killing Nazis. It's kind of a little cathartic about that. That's his mission. He goes off and goes a little AWOL and then kills some Nazis. That's fine with me. I'm happy to read a graphic novel and stories about dudes knifing Nazis. But what's interesting is where the story eventually morphs, like where it goes to. And what's really solid about the graphic novel is it is a reminder that the war didn't end when Germany surrendered or when Japan surrendered. The war continued and had ramifications for a long time. The biggest immediately addressed in this is that when the war ended and the concentration camps were liberated, it didn't mean suddenly all these people got to go home. 1, 6 million people were murdered. 2, many more died afterwards from starvation or murdered by their neighbors who didn't want them to return. And I think that's where this graphic novel really stands out and does a service, and that it reminds readers that things were messed up well after the war ended, that there were pogroms afterwards, that there was a lot of anti-Semitism. All the countries involved really didn't give a crap about the Jews, were happy to look the other way as they were murdered and continued to be murdered after the war. They were just not a priority. And I think it's a very interesting thing to remind people of. I mean, there is a lot in here of moments where Toliver sees, fellow Jews being murdered by their neighbors. And then we get reminded that just because the concentration camps were liberated didn't mean those people got to go home. They had nowhere to go to necessarily. They didn't want to go home because they knew they would be murdered. And many people died, because there was just a lack of resources to help them. There's one really poignant scene where he goes to a camp and the guy lays it out and says, we came here, I forgot how many people were killed, but he said, I think there was like 45,000 people or 40,000 people alive, and now they're seeing like 500 a day dead from starvation and disease, and all they could offer was film and photographs. So they took it upon themselves to photograph the survivors, to have evidence that this happened, and that this was real, and this is history, and that these horrors were committed. And I think it's an amazing moment in the graphic novel to see the soldier, the leader, admit like there was nothing we can do except chronicle this horror. And from there we see the further ramification things. There's a lot of talk of going to, at that point, Palestine, and founding a Jewish homeland and finding a place for safety for Jews from Europe. And the third part focuses on that. And what we're reminded there is a lot of Nazis went to go help the Arabs against the Jews. They were welcome there. That some of them tried to mastermind some of the attacks. And we we are reminded there that this was a group of people. I mean, I'm not saying everything was perfect and everything was fine, but they were surrounded by people who hated them and wanted them destroyed. Things obviously were done horribly, and a lot of that also had to deal with the anti-Semitism. There's little bits here and there reminding us that the British Empire really didn't like Jews, and that they purposely left certain facilities and weapons and materials for the Arabs and Palestinians to snag, knowing that they'd be fully used to attack Jewish people. I'm not saying that time was perfect or everything was hunky-dory and Jews weren't to be blamed for some stuff. The graphic novel actually touches upon that, and I think touches upon that really, really well. But it's there to remind, I think it does a really good job as a reminder that they went from one situation where everyone hated them to another situation where everyone hated them and they were surrounded. And I think it's really interesting of that small connection that it brings up. Is the graphic novel great? Is it really kind of good reminder of the reality of that time? Yes. And hopefully this gets people to go and maybe do a little bit more research on it all. Like, it was messy and all around. There was horrible acts on both sides, but there was clear anti-Semitism throughout the world, and this was a people who had just seen millions of their relatives and friends murdered. And I think it's just I think it does a really good job of connecting the dots of that really, when it came to those murders, that the world was actually pretty okay with that. I mean, that's the reality, I think, of what this graphic novel lays out, that 6 million dead, they didn't really care about. They were actually kind of okay with. But, yeah, because they allowed it to continue afterwards. I mean, that's the truth of it. So, yeah, it's a really interesting graphic novel. The art's, I think, pretty solid. I can't tell you how accurate it is as far as looks and equipment and clothes and all that. But I think what it does really, really well is it doesn't go over the top with the horrific visuals. It actually keeps things kind of muted in a lot of ways, and by doing that, I think it keeps the focus on. It helps keep the focus. It doesn't distract. Like, it's easy to go really over the top with some horrific imagery that will keep you up at night, and the art steers away from that. I think is really good, really smart. So overall, I think it's a really interesting graphic novel. I definitely think it has a point to make, and it does it really well. And I think it does an excellent job of connecting the dots. As far as the history, probably a little loose in that department, but I think the overall themes are pretty solid in it. So out now, you can go get it in comic shops and bookstores. We got a link beneath this video. We got put in your zip code, tell the comic shops near you. No comic shop, no problem. We'll have some links as well where you can purchase. There'll be affiliate links, so we get a small percentage by doing that to help you help support our site. As always, I want to thank Dead Reckoning for hooking us up with the review copy, and of course, thank you all for watching. If you are into comics, if you're into graphic novels, check us out every single day at graphicpolicy.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, all at Graphic Policy. Keep getting nice and consistent. So until next time, keep reading those comics, and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.